In the profound silence of the Chinese mountains, where the mist weaves through ancient secrets and spirituality resonates in every rock, three souls met, not by chance, but by the call of a sacred mission that transcended the conventional boundaries of monastic existence. The world at that time was steeped in sorrow. Wars ravaged lands, families were torn apart, and hope felt like a distant, almost forgotten emotion. It was as if joy had been imprisoned somewhere far beyond the reach of ordinary people. It was in this context that three monks, each from different monasteries and carrying unique stories of inner transformation, crossed paths during a meditation retreat in the misty mountains of southeastern China. It had not been planned. It had not been foreseen. It was as if the universe had guided them to that meeting for a greater purpose. The first monk, with deep wrinkles that told stories of wisdom, had dedicated decades of his life to silent meditation. His eyes, despite his advanced age, shone with an intensity that revealed an understanding beyond the material world. He had learned that true enlightenment did not lie in austere seriousness, but in the ability to see the lightness of existence. The second monk, athletic in build and graceful in movement, carried an energy that defied all traditional monastic conventions. His laughter was like a soft thunder, capable of breaking even the hardest barriers of human suffering. He believed that laughter was a supreme form of meditation, a spiritual practice as powerful as any complex ritual. The third, the youngest, had a spark of innocence and determination in his eyes. He had left his family as a child, driven by an inner calling he could not rationally explain. His lifelong quest had been to understand how suffering could be transformed into joy. When they met, it took little more than a glance to understand that their individual journeys converged into a single purpose: to bring joy to the darkest corners of human existence. Not through elaborate words or complex teachings, but through laughter, simplicity, and unconditional love. That night, as the moon cast its silver light over the monastery, they made a silent vow not with words, but with a shared smile that expressed their mission: to travel through villages, fields, and mountains, spreading light where only darkness remained. It would not be an easy journey. They knew they would challenge centuries of monastic tradition, where seriousness was seen as synonymous with spirituality. But to them, true spirituality lay in the ability to find joy even in the face of the greatest hardships. And so, with simple robes, no more than a few belongings, and an immense inner courage, they embarked on a journey that would transform not only their own lives, but the lives of hundreds of people they would meet along the way. The monks were ready. The journey began now. The monks left the mountains carrying nothing but their inner lightness. The first village emerged on the horizon like a challenge. Serious people, faces marked by worry, arid fields reflecting the harshness of existence. They arrived unannounced. First, the eldest monk sat in the center of the main square. He began to laugh alone, a laughter that seemed disconnected, almost nonsensical. At first, people watched him with suspicion. Children paused their games. Men stopped their conversations. Women stepped out of their homes. The laughter grew. It became contagious, like an invisible wave spreading through the air. First, an elderly man let out a restrained chuckle. Then a child joined in. Soon, half the square was laughing without fully understanding why. They explained nothing. They preached nothing. They simply laughed a laughter that healed, dissolving tensions built up over years of silent suffering. They laughed at everything and nothing. They laughed at life in its purest simplicity. In the days that followed, they gave away smiles like precious coins. They asked for nothing in return. Just being near them was enough to spark an inexplicable inner transformation. Families in conflict began looking at each other differently. Exhausted workers rediscovered the joy of living. The youngest monk had a special gift for making children laugh. He played, made funny faces, and turned serious moments into bursts of innocent joy. His laughter was pure, free of malice or judgment. The middle monk seemed to have an almost magical ability to dissolve sadness. A single glance from him made people feel seen, understood, and loved. They had no method. They followed no protocol. They were simply presences, reminders of the transformative power of joy. They offered small, wordless lessons. A smile for a sorrowful man. A burst of laughter with a group of workers. A warm embrace for an injured child. The village, once a landscape of dull gray, began to take on color. People greeted each other differently. Smiles replaced wary glances. Hugs replaced distance. When the time came to leave, no one cried. Everyone understood that these monks belonged to no one. They were mere messengers of a universal joy, untethered to any land or border. The road awaited them. New horizons. New lives to transform. The road was long, and challenges awaited at every turn. Not every village welcomed them with the same enthusiasm. Some communities remained closed off, like clamshells, resistant to any movement of joy. In the first village of resistance, the monks encountered hardened gazes and closed doors. Stern-looking men watched them with suspicion, while women pulled their children indoors. The atmosphere was heavy, thick with fear and distrust. The eldest monk understood that they would need a different approach. Words or explanations would not break this barrier. Only presence would. Energy, an invisible force that transcended verbal communication. They sat in the center of the main square. No movement, no sound, just presence. Hours passed, and they remained still. People began to feel something shift, an energy they could not quite understand, but that unsettled them deeply. A young boy was the first to approach. Curious, he watched these strange men who said nothing, did nothing. His gaze was one of pure childhood wonder. The adults tried to pull him away, but he insisted on staying close. After hours of absolute silence, the youngest monk let out a small laugh. It was not mocking or intrusive. It was light, like the sound of a clear stream breaking the silence of a forest. The boy laughed too, then his mother, soon a small group, and then the entire square. A laughter that seemed to dissolve the invisible walls of fear and mistrust they had built around themselves. The monks soon learned that this community carried a deep history of loss. A war had devastated families years before. Grief had paralyzed them. Pain had turned them into statues of resentment. The monks did not judge. They did not criticize. They simply remained, allowing healing to unfold in its own time. Their method was non-resistance, letting the energy of the place guide them. In the days that followed, they began helping in the community. They worked alongside the farmers, carried water, repaired fences, not as saviors, but as brothers. As part of that village, the transformation was not immediate, but it was visible. Shy smiles replaced bitter expressions. Hugs replaced distance. Stories of pain began to make way for narratives of hope. When the time came to leave, there were no dramatic farewells. Just a glance of mutual understanding. A seed had been planted. And seeds, when watered with love, always grow. The road called to them. New challenges awaited. The mountains embraced the path of the three monks, silent witnesses to a journey that transformed lives. Winter arrived harshly, painting their trail white with snow. The eldest monk began to feel his body bidding farewell. Not with sorrow, but with the serenity that only years of deep understanding can bring. His steps grew slower, his gaze more distant, yet his smile remained unchanged. On a full moon night, as they rested near an icy stream, he gathered his two companions. His eyes shone with an intensity that transcended the material world. He did not speak of death. He spoke of life. Existence is like this stream, he said gently. Sometimes it rushes, sometimes it slows, but it always follows its natural course. My physical journey is nearing its end, but my essence will continue to flow through you. The two monks listened, not with sorrow, but with a profound understanding of impermanence. They knew that death was not an end, but a transformation. At dawn, during meditation, the elder monk closed his eyes. His final breath was a smile that seemed to contain the entire universe in its simplicity. There were no lamentations, no traditional mourning. The two younger monks honored his passing as a great liberation. They prepared his body with reverence, following the simple rituals they had practiced for years. They chose a sacred spot near the stream. With their own hands, they dug the earth. They wrapped his body with the same simplicity that had always defined him. No headstone, no marker, only nature as a witness. Before departing, they held a silent ceremony. Not one of grief, but of celebration. They understood that life does not end. It merely transforms. The monk who had left was not lost. He had simply entered another state of existence. His ashes were scattered into the waters of the stream. His few belongings were given to the humble people they had met along their journey. Nothing grand, nothing extraordinary, just the simplicity that had always accompanied them. The elder monk's laughter still seemed to echo through the mountains. His spirit remained alive in every smile, in every act of compassion his companions would share. The two remaining monks looked at each other. There was no sorrow in their eyes, only understanding, only love. The certainty that the journey continued, the road awaited them, new paths unfolded. Life flowed on, endlessly, like the stream that had witnessed the passing of a great master. The two monks continued their journey, carrying in their hearts the essence of their departed companion. His physical absence did not diminish the energetic presence of the one who had been their guide and brother on the path. In a small village by the river, they found a boy sitting alone. It was not a mere coincidence. It was as if the universe had led them there, offering them a new opportunity to continue the legacy of love and joy. The boy sat by the roadside, his eyes reflecting a profound sadness that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. He had lost his parents in a flood that had devastated his community. Now, surviving with the help of a few neighbors, he carried a burden no child should ever have to bear. The medium-built monk approached first. His smile was like a silent embrace. Without saying a word, he sat beside the boy, his presence alone creating an atmosphere of warmth and acceptance. At first, the boy withdrew. He was used to distrust, to abandonment. But something about the monk made him feel a safety he had not known in a long time. The fear in his eyes slowly gave way to a glimmer of hope. There were no words of adoption, no formal declarations. Their meeting transcended human bureaucracy. It was as if the child had always been a part of them. In the days that followed, the boy began to learn from the monks, not through traditional lessons, but through observation and shared experience. He discovered that joy is not something taught, it is something lived. The younger monk introduced him to meditation, turning moments of stillness into playful exercises that made the boy laugh. Spirituality was not presented as a burden, but as a source of lightness and joy. The other monk taught him about compassion, how to see the world not with judgment, but with understanding, how to transform suffering into an opportunity for growth and love. The journey continued. Now, they were three souls bound not by blood, but by a greater purpose. Every village they visited, every person they met, became an opportunity to spread love and joy. The boy, once lost and sorrowful, began to radiate an energy reminiscent of the elder monk who had passed. His laughter was like music, healing unseen wounds. His presence transformed every place he entered. This was not an adoption in the traditional sense. It was a rebirth. A new kind of family not chosen by blood, but by purpose. The road awaited them, New horizons stretched before them. Their mission continued, now with three souls united by love, compassion, and the ability to turn suffering into joy. The journey carried on, infinite as love itself. Years passed. The boy, now a young man, had become a true messenger of joy. His laughter echoed like a melody that healed souls, just as his masters had taught him. The villages they passed through no longer saw them as strangers, but as awaited guests. Wherever they arrived, hope blossomed like a field after the rain. They did not preach words. They did not carry absolute truths. They simply lived. The medium-built monk, now with white hair, watched his young apprentice with a smile that held the wisdom of a life devoted to compassion. The younger monk, now mature, complemented this journey with his renewing energy. In a small community deep in China, they decided to establish an informal school, not one of traditional knowledge, but of joy. They taught people to rediscover their inner smile, to turn pain into lightness, sorrow into understanding. Children, adults, elders, everyone learned. Not through books or rigid lessons, but through simple practices of human connection. Meditation blended with play. Deep reflection transformed into moments of pure joy. The legacy of the first monk, the one who had passed away years before, lived on in every smile, in every act of compassion. His essence continued to flow through those he had inspired. On the final day of their journey, they gathered in the same place where the first monk had departed. The stream still flowed. The mountains still stood, silent witnesses to a transformation that went far beyond the individual. The young man looked at his masters. His eyes shone with the same intensity as the first monks. He now understood that the true mission was not to change the world externally, but to transform it from within. "Remember," said the elder monk, "our journey has always been about a single truth. Joy is not a destination. It is a path. A choice we make with every breath, every encounter, every moment." The young man realized that his mission was to continue, to keep spreading love, to keep transforming lives, to keep reminding people that despite all suffering, life can be lived with lightness, with compassion, with a smile on one's face. The story of the three laughing monks is not about three individuals. It is about the human ability to transform suffering into joy. It is a reminder that we can choose our attitude toward life, that love overcomes any barrier, that a smile can be more powerful than 1,000 words. That true revolution happens when we choose to spread light, even in the darkest moments. Joy is not something that happens. It is something you choose to create, in every instant, in every encounter. With every breath, oh,